Well, good morning to you and your family. It is Thursday. It's the end of the week. It's September 29th, 2016. I'm Ainsley Earhart. Donald Trump getting back to the basics and hitting Hillary Clinton where it hurts.
How many more Clinton scandals can this country take? One after another after another.
We are live from Trump Tower with Donald Trump's new debate strategy.
And it turns out the very aides who received immunity deals in the Clinton email investigation with the Department of Justice and the FBI may have actually ordered the wiping of Hillary's server. How's that illegal?
I'm not sure. That was a crazy day yesterday for the FBI, and you thought this was bad.
What would you do if you were elected about Aleppo? About Aleppo. And what is Aleppo?
Well, it happened again. How Gary Johnson had another Aleppo moment. And let me just remind you, in case you're quizzed later in the street, your mornings are better because you're with friends.
He should just stop now.
Why? What is he doing? It's fascinating because as he blows himself up, and we'll see the evidence, he's a wonderful person. He's a very nice guy. Yeah. But you wonder who he's going to shed to, because in Arizona he's doing well, and so is New Hampshire. After a while, people are like, I can't even pretend that he's legitimate.
Well, with Gary Johnson, a lot of those are young people who aren't interested in Hillary or Trump, who might just sit at home.
What are they, like, hang gliding?
Who are those people?
Sometimes.
He was a Republican, right? And now he's an independent in support of marijuana.
Libertarian.
Legal marijuana. Libertarian now?
Yeah.
Okay. All right, we begin with the race for the White House. Donald Trump hitting the campaign trail pretty hard. He's riding a wave of momentum after that first presidential debate this week.
But now his advisors want him to shift his strategies to something new. How do you get to Carnegie Hall? Practice, practice, practice. How do you get to St. Louis? Practice, practice, practice.
Right, but first you got to go to John Scott. That's your one-stop
John Roberts.
shop. John Scott.
He's looking for him.
Great Scott.
I apologize. You know what? I cannot wait.
Over here.
I cannot wait for 11 o'clock when John Scott gets here. And,
Brian's just looking for the John.
Yeah, exactly. And, I'm really trying to handle that.
You know, Brian,
hi, John.
You know, Brian, you were mentioning that you really like Gary Johnson. I can see why. You share something in common.
That hurts my feelings.
I'm sorry, Brian. Hey, remember with Gary Johnson, too, he polls really high in Colorado, and that's a hugely important state this year. All right, so on to the next presidential debate a week from Sunday at Washington University in St. Louis. We hear that Donald Trump is going to adjust his strategy, maybe adopt a little bit of a new one, and that would include, to get to Carnegie Hall, practice, practice, practice. Of course, with Donald Trump, everything is a wild card. Nobody really knows if he's going to do it or not. But there are a lot of people in the Republican Party, and many in his campaign, who believe that he left a lot of opportunities sitting on the table. He missed some chances to go after Hillary Clinton. The one thing that he really couldn't even get off the ground with was pivoting from the question he was asked to the question that he really wanted to answer, or really should have answered. He said that he couldn't find a way to Benghazi because he was asked about something else. Well, that's the skill of a good debater, is to be able to make those pivots into things that you weren't even asked about. Kellyanne Conway was with Megyn Kelly last night in the Kelly File. Megyn asked her about what they're going to do differently in the next debate. Here's what Kellyanne Conway said.
So he did practice and he did prepare before these debates. I think looking toward the next format, the town hall format, we will certainly be taking into account the different logistics and the physicalities involved with that particular setting. I think if Mr. Trump looks back at the first 30 minutes or so of the debate, he'll see some real highlights. His ability to sort of joust and jab with Hillary Clinton.
Couple of potential lines of attack that Donald Trump could pursue a week from Sunday. He's got a new one that he's using on the campaign trail. Follow the money, suggesting that Hillary Clinton only cares about people who are giving her money. Those are the only people she really wants to represent. And then what Hillary Clinton said in the debate on Monday about most people in this country having a problem with implicit racism. Here's what Trump said last night. Listen.
How can Hillary Clinton try to lead this country when she has such a low opinion of its citizens? How can she lead this country when she thinks America is full of racists, deplorables, and irredeemables?
Now, you mentioned at the very top of this, Ainsley, that it's a town hall debate format for the next debate, and that carries with it a lot of unknowns as well. You know, it's more difficult to attack your opponent head on when you're being asked questions from the audience. You really do need to learn how to pivot. And as we saw back in 1992, you could lose a debate simply by looking at your watch or forgetting your correspondent's name, Brian.
That's right. All right, thanks so much, Ed Henry. Appreciate it.
You bet. Good to see you.
All right.
Thanks, John.
As Ed was just talking in that report about how Trump has opened a new line of attack, which is follow the money, he's been able to connect two things: follow the money and the Clintons' many, many scandals. Here he is last night.
The Clintons have perfected the politics of profit, but more importantly, when you look at what's happening, I think it has more to do with other things. Large corporations who support terrible trade deals and offshore jobs, and they're donating to the Clintons. How many more Clinton scandals can this country take? One after another after another. Never in American history have so many serious challenges been met with so unserious a campaign as the campaign of Hillary Clinton.
I think in the town hall on Sunday, you're going to be there, St. Louis, next Sunday. I think he's going to be much more comfortable because he's good in that atmosphere when he's surrounded by the voters versus one moderator giving him all the questions.
Well, now he's got two moderators. He's going to have Martha Raddatz, who's really into international affairs. She's unbelievably knowledgeable there, so I think she'll press him, I imagine. And Anderson Cooper, who he's had mixed results with.
But also people in the audience will be asking questions as well.
Pre-screened.
And so he's got to tend to two different people. He has perfected the political rally, no doubt about it. He is fantastic at that. How's he going to do? Well, let's find out if they do some practicing. In the meantime, somebody who has appeared on this program as a Trump surrogate a number of times, Newt Gingrich. Interestingly enough, Newt is begging to differ with Donald Trump. He thinks Donald Trump got something kind of wrong, but he explains in this soundbite.
I don't often, as you know, disagree with Trump, and I have great admiration. But I think he said something just now that I think is an exaggeration. I don't think Hillary would sell the Oval Office. I think she would rent it on a nightly basis, but I don't think she'd sell it. And I think it's a little bit much. First of all, she has greater value over 8 years renting it one night at a time than if she sold it because only one guy couldn't pay enough.
Taking it one step further.
Yeah, I mean, Newt's been battling hard for, obviously, is one of his best surrogates. We're going to find out in a couple of days the impact of the debates. Now, Hillary Clinton really feels that she's got some momentum, but if you look at the size of the crowds, Donald Trump feels good as if he's still surging like he was
People
prior
are excited
to it.
at his rallies.
A couple of things that are coming out now. They're starting to point out things like, for example, remember with Bernie Sanders coming out over and over again saying, release the transcripts of your speeches to Wall Street, that you got $675,000. We don't know what you said to Wall Street. I think that's important. Also, the Clinton camp is getting worried they're losing millennials. That's why they marched out Bernie Sanders.
That's right.
And the other thing is they're getting worried about Virginia. That's why they're underlying Republican Senator John Warner saying, I'm not going to go with the Republican, I'm going to go with Hillary.
Well, and people are telling Donald Trump, you need to hit her where it hurts. And that's why at these rallies, now he's doing that again. You know, he didn't call her crooked Hillary when he was at the debate on Monday night. He's doing that now on the campaign trail and hitting her hard. Pay to play, the email scandals, and that's that's what a lot of Republicans are saying. They want him to get back to the basics.
Right, and that's one of the reasons the Republicans, under the leadership of Jason Chaffetz, the House Oversight Committee chairman, they had another hearing yesterday. They had James Comey, the guy who heads up the FBI, and they were grilling him. And they said, for the most part, the more they see about the decision not to criminally proceed with anything against Hillary Clinton, the more they're scratching their head. Here is Jason Chaffetz, Republican from Utah, yesterday.
I think she lied to everybody. I mean, to the FBI. I mean, I'm the one that brought that up to Director Comey, and I said, how is it that the FBI report concludes that she did not know about it until after it became public, when back in 2010 she was sending an email to Mr. Cooper. Now, Cooper works for the Clinton Foundation or Bill Clinton. He does not work for the State Department. So when there's a problem with her email, what does he do? She sends an email to this person asking, is the server okay? And this person, Mr. Cooper, writes back and says, oh, you're funny. You're on the same server. So come on. There's direct evidence that she actually did know.
Yeah.
Yeah, and there's direct evidence that the guy from Platte River, which is a company that was the IT company, lied to investigators at the FBI after he got the immunity deal. First he said, yeah, I didn't know that things were under subpoena. I was supposed to save them. And then a couple of weeks later he said, yeah, I knew. But no, I'm not going to talk about that phone call I had with Hillary's aides and her attorneys and what we discussed just before I bleached everything.
One of her aides, his name is Paul Combetta. He was one of the guys who got the immunity.
That's the IT guy.
All right, so he goes on Reddit and is asking how to hide VIP email addresses.
And James Comey was unable to say whether that factored into the investigation, but we do know this. James Comey says, don't call me whatever you want, but don't call me a weasel.
That's right.
That was one of the quotes that I'll never forget. I'm not a weasel.
All right, we won't call him that.
Yeah.
All right. Time now for some news, and Abby joins us this morning.
Call me a weasel. I look
Never.
better, you guys.
Okay.
Never.
Absolutely, Abby.
Good to see you guys. Good morning.
Morning.
All right, we do start with this. A video just coming into our newsroom showing protesters throwing bottles at police officers. Cops forced to shut down streets outside of San Diego. Others yelling for them to stop throwing glass bottles. The protesters, they are outraged over the killing of Alfred Olongo. This photo, just released by the El Cajon Police Department, shows the 38-year-old in a shooting stance. Well, later it was revealed he was not holding a gun, but a vape smoking device. Officers shot him after his sister called 911 to report him acting erratically. Well, the officers involved, both 21-year veterans of the force, are now on leave. And new information about the teenager who shot up an elementary school right after police say he murdered his own father. Officers say the 14-year-old killed his dad, Jeffrey Osborne. You can see him there inside his home in South Carolina. Then he drove 2 miles to Townville Elementary School, where he shot 2 6-year-old boys and a teacher on the playground before being tackled by a firefighter. One child in critical condition. Authorities say the teenager was homeschooled, and this morning he is in custody, and investigators are working to find the motive. So sad. Congress standing up to President Obama to bring justice to the families of the 9/11 victims for the first time in his presidency. Congress rejecting President Obama's veto to a bill allowing families to sue Saudi Arabia for its alleged involvement in planning and funding the terror attacks. The president trying to guilt-trip lawmakers over their decision.
This is it's a dangerous precedent, and it's an example of why sometimes you have to do what's hard. And frankly, I wish Congress here had done what's hard.
President Obama now blaming the vote on the election year. And real-life heroes on Capitol Hill. 2 congressmen jump into action to save a man's life when they find him passed out in an elevator, unconscious and not breathing. Pennsylvania Congressman Tim Murphy doing CPR and using a defibrillator, and Texas Congressman Michael Burgess, a medical doctor, overseeing it all. Well, they got his pulse back before emergency crews rushed him to the hospital. No word on his condition. And those hero lawmakers join us live in the 7 o'clock hour of Fox and Friends, and those are friends that I'd love to have. I look forward to seeing that interview.
No kidding. They knew how to work. The first guy Murphy knew how to work the defibrillator, and that saved the guy's life.
You know, you can buy those for your house, too.
They're about $3,000.
Oh, they are.
I think. But
yeah, I know every sports league
could save your life.
Wants him there.
We have them all over this building right now. Meanwhile, straight ahead, thank you, Abby, on this Thursday. So much for being fair and balanced. Look at this. Congresswoman Sheila Jackson Lee wearing a gold Hillary Clinton campaign pin at the Hillary email investigation hearing.
Wow.
A pledge pin?
And that meeting between Donald Trump and religious leaders, it's just a few hours away. Pastor Robert Jeffress will be there. He's here in New York. What he wants to hear from Donald Trump is coming up next.
He's getting closer.
Pastors and faith leaders getting more involved with politics this campaign year than ever before. And our next guest says it's no surprise, as new polls reveal most voters think the country is headed down the wrong path. Fox News contributor Pastor Robert Jeffress has just compiled how a Christian should vote, questions to ask any candidate, and he's meeting with Donald Trump later today. Actually, he's hosting an event over at Trump Tower. But first, he's starting his day right here at Fox and Friends. Good morning to you.
Good morning, Steve.
Well, if like 70% of the country thinks the country is headed in the wrong direction, oftentimes we turn to the people we see on Sunday for direction, and that leads to you.
Well,
guys like you and gals like you.
And look, everybody knows I support Donald Trump. I think he is the only choice in this next election, Steve. I mean, for conservative Christians, look at Trump. I mean, he is the only candidate who is pro-life, pro-religious liberty, pro-conservative justices to the Supreme Court. He's the only candidate who treats the views of conservative Christians with respect rather than contempt like Hillary Clinton does. And so, although I'm not going to endorse from the pulpit, when I think pastors preach about issues, the sanctity of life, religious liberty, fairness for all people, I think people can connect the dots and know for whom to vote.
I heard a statistic a while back during the Mitt Romney-Barack Obama campaign season. 25 million U.S. evangelicals did not vote. So obviously that, you know, there's a lot of numbers there if Trump or Hillary Clinton could possibly get them to come vote. You put together this pamphlet, and in a moment we're going to tell you how you can get it. But it asks 5 questions. Right. One of them is, how does a candidate's faith impact his policies?
Right. Article 6 of the Constitution says there's no government religious litmus test for running for office. You can be an atheist, a Christian, a Hindu. But the fact is, our faith does impact the decisions we make. And I would suggest any candidate who says, well, I'm a person of faith, but it has no impact on my policies, either that person is a shallow follower of his faith or they're a liar. I mean, I think it's a right thing to ask how the candidate's faith would impact his policies.
And in particular, and real quick last question, you want to make sure that whoever is the next president of the United States picks somebody to go on the Supreme Court that aligns with your religious views.
Well, I think it's whether it's my views or not. The fact is, we need justices who will interpret the law using the Constitution and not political correctness as the standard. Trump has promised to appoint conservative justices. He's given a list of 21 that he will pick from. He's been praised by every conservative group in America for these people he's picked. The Supreme Court alone, Steve, is reason for conservatives to turn out and vote in this election.
All right. For folks who would like your pamphlet on how to vote, how Christians should vote, you can get it
at ptv.org. That's ptv.org. That's Pathway to Victory, our broadcast ministry. It's free of charge.
Pastor, thank you very much. Or you could go to our website, foxandfriends.com, and we'll link to yours. All right.
Thanks.
Pastor, thank you very much.
Thanks, Steve.
All right. Coming up, the media says Hillary Clinton won the first debate, but what do the undecideds and the Democrats think? You're about to find out next. And Tim Tebow takes his first swing as a professional baseball player. So how did he do? Well, we'll tell you in a second.
All right, now for your headlines. 615 more U.S. troops are going to Iraq. President Obama ordering the move to help fight ISIS. The total number of U.S. troops in Iraq will now exceed 5,000. This is the 11th time since 2014 that more troops have been sent to Iraq. Maybe we shouldn't have pulled them out so quickly. Well, who knows? Then these two men, seen taking a bag from the site of New York City at the bombing, right before the bombs went off, have been identified as Egyptians, and the police say they have already left the United States. I wonder why. Authorities want to question them after they took the bag used by the suspect, the bombing suspect, Ahmed Rahami. They're still being considered suspects. All right, over to Ainsley.
Thanks, Brian.
There's the countdown. It was a fiery debate this week. Some say that Trump had the upper hand, while others say that Clinton dominated. But in the middle of the swing state of Pennsylvania, one bar full of undecided voters were watching, and they were won over by Donald Trump. So how did he do it? Here to explain how he got her vote is Katie Latowski. Thank you for joining us, Katie.
Thank you.
Now understand, you're a paralegal by day, you're a bartender and a waitress at this bar called the Tin Lizzie in Pennsylvania, is that right?
Yep.
So what happened? You got a group together there to watch the debate?
I was actually working that evening and decided to stay and watch the debate, and some friends came to join me.
What was your reaction and the reaction of the folks in the bar?
There was a small group of us all watching and paying attention, and overall I thought that Trump came out on top. It seemed like Hillary was focused on making personal jabs at him instead of focusing on the issues at hand.
And you have never been really political before. In fact, you just registered to vote, I understand, after you watched the debate. Is that right?
Yeah, I did. I registered actually right after the debate.
Why?
I guess before in the past I really didn't have any faith in the candidates that were there, and I found someone that I actually believe in more or less this time that wants to change things and move forward as a country.
What did he say during the debate that really stuck out to you?
Just his, I mean, you can't really pinpoint one thing. It's just all his background ideas on what he wants to do to make America great, to keep the jobs in our country instead of having them outsourced to other countries, closing the borders and giving people here more opportunities to be employed.
The stakes are pretty high in Pennsylvania. Both candidates really need to win that state. And I understand that Westmoreland County, is that where the bar is in Westmoreland County?
Yeah, it's a primarily Trump-dominated area, I'd say.
Why is that?
I'm not sure. There's a lot of working class people, a lot of people, small business owners that have established their own, businesses in the area, and I think that they have his support because what he's going to do is going to benefit them in the long run. It's an area of hard workers and people with morals and ethics. And
Well, the experts are saying that he needs 2,000 more votes than Mitt Romney got in that county. Do you think he's going to win the state of Pennsylvania?
As far as my area of Pennsylvania, I think he'd have it in the bag. I can't speak for the other side of the state because I'm not over there, but I mean, he has their support out this way, for sure.
All right. Well, thank you so much for coming on to talk to us. We really appreciate that. We wish you all the best in your endeavors.
All right. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Coming up, you thought this was bad.
What would you do if you were elected about Aleppo? About Aleppo. And what is Aleppo?
Oh, well, Gary Johnson just had another Aleppo moment. We're going to play it for you. And it's the way you said it. Brian likes to say Aleppo. And so much for being fair. Look at that. So much for being fair and balanced. Congresswoman Sheila Jackson Lee wearing a Clinton campaign pin at the Hillary Clinton hearing, at the email hearing. Should that be allowed? But first, happy birthday to Jerry Lee Lewis. He is 81 years old today. That's how you do it. That's how to start your pro baseball career. Tim Tebow making us all proud, hitting a home run during his first at bat. Yep. And his first pitch, first time at bat, first instructional league game for the New York Mets, Brian.
I believe that's the first time that the dugout emptied in the first inning. Unless you're Derek Jeter in the last game of your career. I cannot believe that. The former Heisman Trophy winner and NFL quarterback signing a contract earlier this month with the New York Mets and did not strike out during his debut. Very impressive. Although,
fantastic.
I believe he belongs in the CFL.
Why?
Proving to the NFL that he belongs in the NFL because I believe he's an NFL quarterback.
Yeah, but that
he
didn't
just
work.
needs an opportunity.
But that's the problem. There weren't any.
So go to Canada. If you can't get enough,
He's going to stay here.
if you couldn't get a job at Fox News, wouldn't you go to Canada?
No.
You wouldn't go to Canada?
I'm
I'd go to
going
Canada.
to stay in America.
Are you
You're telling me to leave the country?
Right?
That's absolutely.
What I'm saying. For all you naysayers, I told you so.
Listen,
Brian.
wait a second. You act like he's going to Cooperstown.
He's going to get better and better. That's what he's starting out looking like. Imagine in a few years.
If this keeps up, he will have 500 home runs by the end of the month.
That'd be
right?
fantastic.
And I bet he will. I'm going to pray for that.
Things are looking up for him.
All right.
And let's talk. Yesterday we were talking a little bit about how opposite the debate, Monday Night Football had the lowest ratings in their history. And Brian appropriately added, part of that, over the last couple of weeks has been to the fact that a lot of people are not happy with the number of NFL football players who are taking a knee.
I would say this. I've never seen more football fans come up to me out of nowhere and just say, I'm not watching if my team sits there and takes a knee during the national anthem because regardless of what you're standing for, if you can't agree to stand and salute the flag, then I will not watch you play football.
You really have heard that from a lot of people.
I've heard it from a lot of people, and the ratings to a degree show it. We'll see what happens in the long term. Meanwhile, Donald Trump was asked by Bill O'Reilly about that very topic last night. He weighed in.
I tell you, it offends me, it does, especially since he's doing so well in terms of economically and so many other ways. I guess he probably lost his starting position because something happened to him. He went downhill fast, and frankly, that's okay. But I would not be a happy camper.
He wouldn't be a happy camper if he owned the team, he's saying.
Exactly. The President of the United States was over on CNN last night and asked about it. He said, I want Mr. Kaepernick and others who are on a knee, I want them to listen to the pain that they may cause somebody who, for example, had a spouse or a child who was killed in combat, and why it hurts them to see somebody not standing.
That's a great response.
It is. But he went on to say, but I also want people to think about the pain that he may be expressing about somebody who's lost a loved one that they think was unfairly shot.
So on July 13th, Senator Tim Scott, one of 2 African Americans in the Senate.
He's the only Republican.
The only Republican. Cory Booker's the only Democrat. So I did a feature yesterday. I had the privilege of going to see him in action, did a day with him, and you're going to see it tomorrow. But I asked him about Colin Kaepernick, and I said, have you ever commented on this before? And he said, no. Keep in mind, on July 13th, he talked very vividly about being stopped 7 times in Capitol Hill because he believes because he's black, even though he had the Senate pin on. He said a couple of times I was speeding, the other times I was just pulled over because I was in a pretty nice car.
He was speeding?
He said a couple of times he was speeding, was pulled over. The other times he says, I believe it was just because I was in a nice car. And he talked about that when this was in, after one of the incidents happened over the summer. Having said that, I had no idea what he was going to say about Colin Kaepernick. Listen to this.
Our American flag is the greatest representation of what it means. It is the symbol of hope and opportunity for all of us. The fact that we have problems never gives you permission to disrespect our flag. Never should we ever find ourselves in a situation where we find the flag of the United States of America being antithetical to freedom. The flag flies for freedom. And the fact that some of us have to work to make sure that all of us experience that freedom means that we've made progress, because this country is the beacon of light for all of mankind. And anyone that stands up or refuses to stand, I think you're making a drastic mistake, and you're bringing the focus to you and not to the underlying issue.
Wow.
So you do have a choice, but just think it all through.
From the great state of South Carolina, I thought that was beautifully said.
Yeah, I mean, it's obviously how he feels. He does believe there is a problem with law enforcement in the black community. He believes this is just the wrong way to do it, and he thinks it's detracting from it. And he said the biggest thing he's ever put online was him in front of the flag the day Colin Kaepernick took a knee. And he said he got more likes on that picture than ever before. Keep in mind, he wasn't born to privilege. He was born in poverty, single parent. His mom was a nurse's aide, made very little money. So he understands the struggle in South Carolina.
Right. We had, I don't remember who it was, we had some celebrity athlete on. We've had so many to talk about this, and one of them said, it's the approach. If you feel this way, we understand that, but give money to one of the charities that can help.
It was
Shaq that said, give money to some of the charities instead of taking a knee during the American.
Well, he is giving $1 million. He says, I'm giving $1 million to a charity.
Colin Kaepernick.
Yeah, Colin Kaepernick.
And then, of course, last week we had Bobby Knight on the couch, and he said if he was his coach, he would have fired him.
Yeah, so all of the jerseys that he makes money, I guess, every time a jersey's bought, a Kaepernick jersey, he's giving all that money to charity.
Well, he's giving $1 million of it because he's the #1 selling jersey. So it's resonating with some people. It got him on the cover of Time magazine.
So what do you think? Let us know. Contact us via Twitter. We're at Fox and Friends, or you could Facebook us or email us on this Thursday morning.
All right. We look forward to seeing that story tomorrow.
Yeah,
more with the
Senator
Senator.
Scott.
Fascinating day.
In the meantime, we're going to hand it over to Abby, who has some headlines for us.
Good morning, you guys.
Good morning.
Good to see you. Thanks you all for joining as well. We start with this. President Obama sparking fresh controversy over the term radical Islam. A mother of a fallen soldier bluntly asking President Obama why he refuses to acknowledge the root causes of terrorism. The president quickly dismissing her question, calling it a, quote, manufactured issue by his political opponents. Tina Houchin's 19-year-old son, Aaron Gautier, was killed in Baghdad back in 2007 by radical Islamic terrorists. And remember this gaffe from Libertarian presidential candidate Gary Johnson.
What would you do if you were elected about Aleppo? About Aleppo. And what is Aleppo?
Oh boy, we all remember that. Well, he just had another one. Johnson unable to name a foreign leader that he respects. Watch.
Mexico, Europe, over there, Asia, South America, Africa, name a foreign leader that you respect.
I guess I'm having an Aleppo moment in the former president
of Mexico. But I'm giving you the whole world.
I know.
Anybody in the world you like. Anybody. Pick any leader.
The former president of Mexico.
Which one?
I'm having a brain.
Well, name anybody.
Fox. Diaz.
Oh, boy, you almost feel bad for him in that moment. All right, and so much for being impartial. Democratic Congresswoman Sheila Jackson Lee seen here wearing a Hillary Clinton campaign pin during the hearing on Clinton's email server. You could see her wearing her support on her sleeve right as Congress grills FBI Director James Comey. Well, the House has no rules against members wearing candidates' pins. And he might not like Donald Trump, but he probably liked this even less. Check out what happens when a guy tries to steal a Trump sign from his neighbor's lawn. Watch this. All right, so there's no sound. You can see the guy running on the lawn, trying to steal a sign, gets buzzed. And you get electrocuted when you touch this sign. The homeowner in Washington State was sick of thieves stealing his sign, so he booby-trapped it with electricity, zapping anyone who touches them. His neighbor now being charged with trespassing. I guess that kind of serves him right, though. Look at that. He'll never touch that sign again.
Got a little buzz.
Attempted theft he should also be charged with. I hate thieves. Yeah. I hate that.
I know.
Right. I am definitely against a crime as well.
Very good.
Yeah.
I'm glad.
I'm off crime.
Vandalism.
Yeah. I'm also willing to come out against thieves. Right.
So next time, just think, if you're going to touch that, it might be like the invisible fence. You might get a little shocked, like a dog.
And if you're going to steal something today, you've made an enemy of me and Ainsley. Steve is still on the fence on crime.
I'm on the invisible fence.
How do you? I've heard of the invisible fences for a dog that you can put around your house, but
That's
how do
what I
you?
have.
How do you buy just like a little shock something to put on a
on a sign?
Yeah.
Right.
Well, like, well, we don't know what he did, but you know, if you have an electric fence out in Kansas, in the olden days when I was the president of the FFA.
You're president now?
I was president of the FFA, Future Farmers of America. You put a car battery.
Oh.
You hook it to a car battery. It's that simple.
Try it.
All right.
Meanwhile, straight ahead, you'll have to wait in line to vote on Election Day, but some convicted felons will get to cast a ballot without even leaving their jail cells. How is that going to work for the felons? We'll explain.
Oh, cut down on the lines. And there's another political race happening, and it's a lot cuter than the real one. Which party will win? The Democrats or these Republicans? How your pet can vote. That's straight ahead.
No electrical fences in our green room.
Don't
I
even
promise,
mention
doggies.
it. My invisible fence looks great.
Some quick headlines for you this morning. More votes coming from behind bars. The governor of California, Jerry Brown, signing a bill to let thousands of felons vote from their jail cells. He thinks it's going to help speed up their transition back into society. But the California Sheriff's Association strongly against that, saying there have got to be some consequences for actions. And another unpatriotic act, 8 New York City Council members refusing to stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. They are joining a wave of national protests against police started by NFL quarterback Colin Kaepernick. Those seated are actually calling their actions patriotic. What do you think?
They're idiots. All right, here we go. Director Tim Burton is taking a New York Times best-selling novel to the big screen.
He's invisible. Of course. We're what's known in common parlance as peculiar.
One for each.
Miss Peregrine's Home for Peculiar Children hits the big screen this weekend.
It looks like Tim Burton stuff, and this looks like Fox Senior Vice President of Marketing, Michael Tamaro, sat down with the cast.
I did, and they told me all about bringing this mysterious story to life.
For people not familiar with the book, how would you describe this story?
It's like a weird sort of folk tale or weird sort of spooky children's bedtime story. You know, that's what I really, really loved about it.
It's the story of a teenager who has trouble fitting in. He embarks on this epic journey and he kind of discovers this mysterious place where you have like kind of peculiar children. There he will learn how to embrace his own peculiarities and he will find himself.
It's a very visual adventure. What Tim's so good at doing is weaving in these kind of slightly creepy and mysterious elements.
Miss Peregrine is such kind of an unusual character, and I know Tim Burton calls her Scary Poppins. You know, it's a character who has rules, can be quite tough, but it's all for the love of her children.
Promise me one thing. Look after them, Jake. I promise.
What would you think people would be surprised to learn is peculiar about you two?
What's peculiar about me?
Everything.
Yeah, we could say that. I mean, I guess we both And it's easy to say, just like our upbringing being kind of child actors is peculiar in itself.
Sometimes people put me like in the dark femme fatale box or something, and when they meet me, or they realize that I'm actually quite shy. So yeah, that's the real me.
If you could have a peculiar power,
well, invisibility is always a good one. But I guess the character that I most would identify was the Enoch character, kind of making weird inanimate objects come to life. And that's something that intrigues me.
Miss Peregrine's Home for Peculiar Children opens up nationwide this Friday. So good, guys. Probably Tim Burton's best movie in years.
I like the description, Scary Poppins.
Yes, it's Mary Poppins with an edge.
Yeah. Is it scary if we want to take kids?
It's a little dark.
Okay.
Yeah, probably like, 10 and up, I'd say. Be sure to check out FoxNewsMagazine.com for all my celebrity interviews, or follow me on Twitter and Instagram at Fox Night Michael.
There he is right there.
Not even one yet.
I'm not taking. I was asking that really for the moms at home.
I thought you asked it for you.
5 and 6 year olds.
It sounded like you were thinking of yourself.
I know.
You know what? In 9 years, I'll remind you.
James will see that a long time from now.
Michael, thank you.
Thank you.
All right, straight ahead, brand new details on the mall shooter up in Washington State. The suspect, not an American citizen, so why was he allowed to vote 3 different times, including in a presidential primary?
Wow. Well, prisoners can vote now, too. And there's another political race happening, and it is a lot cuter than the real one. Which party, in this case, is going to win? The
Democrats
or the
Republicans?
How your pet can vote next. Good Thursday morning. It's the end of the week. You almost made it. It's September 29th, 2016. I'm Ainsley Earhart. Happening right now, 2 lions escape from the zoo. Panic is breaking out at this very hour, and we have the breaking details. We're going to tell you where that is.
Meanwhile, in politics, Donald Trump getting back to basics, which include attacking Hillary Rodham Clinton.
How can she lead this country when she thinks America is full of racists, deplorables, and irredeemables?
And deplorables, indeed. Plus, his strategy for the next debate in St. Louis just revealed, and we'll reveal it to you.
And the head of the FBI grilled over the Clinton email investigation. This, as we learn, the aides who got immunity may have actually ordered the wiping of her server. When's this going to end? Let me just remind you, smile. Mornings are better with friends.
Yep, that's the Freedom Tower here in New York City, and you're looking right now at Liberty Landing in New Jersey, where today the Folds of Honor Foundation will launch their Dream Ship, which is a hot air balloon covered in the drawings of children whose parents gave the ultimate sacrifice for your freedom.
Isn't that beautiful? There's the balloon right there on the ground. It's a little too windy here right now this morning to blow it up at this moment, but that's a picture of what it looks like. That was yesterday.
That's
right. They were about to take off. Isn't that just beautiful? Folds of Honor is an amazing organization.
It's fantastic. And Major Dan Rooney's going to be with us live, along with Leah Gabriel, out there very shortly. So stick around for the next hour of Fox and Friends.
And, President Obama was even talking about the military yesterday and how we can't forget about them just because you might not be thinking about the war. They're fighting it. Meanwhile, the presidential election just 40 days away.
Donald Trump hitting the campaign trail very hard, riding a wave of momentum after the first presidential debate. But now his advisors want him to shift his strategy.
That's right. They're going to do something very simple. They want him to practice, don't they, John Roberts, outside Trump Tower?
Good morning, Steve. Good morning, Ainsley. Good morning, Clayton. Brad. Yeah, they want to... They want Donald Trump to prepare a little more for this debate than he did for the last one. I think that they discovered that this idea of winging it probably is not the best one. There are a lot of Republicans who believe that there were a bunch of missed opportunities in the Monday debate, that he should have found a way to pivot from some of the questions that he was asked by the moderator, Lester Holt, into things that he really wanted to talk about. One of the big missed opportunities when he was asked about cybersecurity, he didn't even mention Hillary Clinton's emails. And though he wasn't asked about Benghazi, there were probably plenty of opportunities. People think that he could have pivoted and gone after her on Benghazi. And then he he probably could have had a better comeback to her when she was talking about past comments that he's made about women. As for the next debate, it's at Washington University in St. Louis a week from Sunday. It's a town hall format. Kellyanne Conway in the Kelly File last night gave us an idea of what they plan to do a week from Sunday.
I think looking toward the next format, the town hall format, we will certainly be taking into account the different logistics and the physicalities involved with that particular setting.
Yeah, one of the things you got to do is make sure you don't look at your watch, but also engage with the audience. A new line of attack that Donald Trump pursued yesterday in the Midwest at rallies in Waukesha, Wisconsin, and Council Bluffs, Iowa. A new sort of populist outreach to working-class voters, suggesting, remember Cuba Gooding Jr. said, show me the money? Donald Trump saying, follow the money. Listen to this.
The only people Hillary Clinton ever fights for are the special interests who write checks for her. With her, it's about follow the money. Follow the money. And believe me, that's what's happened. In her campaign for president, Hillary Clinton has received $100 million in contributions from Wall Street and the hedge funds.
Donald Trump suggesting to you folks yesterday that maybe he should have gone a little harder on Hillary Clinton than he did in Monday's debate. It's a little difficult to do that, though, in this town hall format because it's not the sort of combative environment of a moderator and two candidates. You're being asked questions from the audience, and they want to see you engage with them as opposed to going after your opponent. So the preparation strategy for this debate will be interesting to see, or at least hear about, because we won't see it. But then again, there's always the wild card as to whether or not Donald Trump's going to do it or not. Ainsley, Brian, Steve?
You're right, the wild card. All right, John, thank you very much.
Thanks, John.
John was just talking about how Donald Trump may go harder after Hillary. Yesterday up on Capitol Hill, Judge Napolitano, there were a number of Republicans who said to James Comey, you should have gone a little harder after her because all these revelations we had, particularly with the document dump on Friday, make it look like the FBI dropped the ball.
And we're trying to hide the ball, too, by dumping it on Friday.
This is very sad for us to watch, us who have been in the law enforcement, legal, judicial community, in my case, longer than 40 years. Particularly James Comey, who as recently as a year ago, had a reputation as the most upstanding, the straightest shooter in a major law enforcement position in the United States today. That reputation he no longer enjoys. There are FBI agents who worked on this case who are so furious at the politically orchestrated outcome. Obviously, he's not going to tell that to the House committee. He's going to give the impression that we're united and we did this professionally. There are FBI agents who believe their hands were tied. There are FBI agents who believe that the orders came down from the beginning. Exonerate her. Reasons for that: no grand jury called, no subpoenas issued, no search warrants served, no serious Department of Justice supervision because of that nonsense between Bill Clinton and the Attorney General at the Phoenix airport, which wiped out all the senior leadership in DOJ.
All right, Congressman Trey Gowdy, he said, why give immunity to 5 people if they didn't do anything wrong? Immunity from what, he said? He was grilling James Comey yesterday. Watch this and we'll get reaction.
What concerns me, Director, is when you have 5 immunity agreements and no prosecution, when you are allowing witnesses who happen to be lawyers, who happen to be targets, to sit in on an interview. That is not the FBI that I used to work with.
I hope someday when the political craze is over, you will look back again on this, because this is the FBI you know and love. This was done by pros in the right way. That's the part I have no patience for.
Say when this political, so he's saying he's saying Trey Gowdy's political.
Well, right, and Trey Gowdy is a former federal prosecutor who worked hand in glove in South Carolina with the FBI, and Director Comey knows that. It's a difficult thing to watch, knowing that the mountain of evidence against her is overwhelming, and they decided from the beginning not to prosecute her. You want my theory?
Yeah.
As Donald Trump began to rise in the Republican primaries, Barack Obama decided, I don't want to be succeeded by him. I'm going to do everything I can to save Hillary, no matter what.
So the word came from the White House to the AG, to Comey.
Yes.
Boom, that's what we got.
Now, these people did not receive immunity. They received agreements not not to prosecute them on the basis of what they told the FBI.
Right.
But the FBI usually does that.
That's not immunity?
No, because they could still be prosecuted for other reasons. They just can't have used against them, right, what they told the FBI. That evidence is off the table. But they usually don't do that. Congressman Gowdy is right. Unless there's going to be a prosecution, and their testimony is so vital that we have to agree not to go after them for their involvement, and that didn't happen here.
And Judge, you said yesterday that Cheryl Mills representing Hillary Clinton and getting immunity while still protecting.
I've never seen that.
Really cozy.
Never seen that in my career, where a lawyer is a witness getting immunity, a partial agreement not to prosecute, and stays in the case.
But you know what he
because you have divided loyalty between protecting your client, Hillary Clinton, and protecting yourself.
You know what he said yesterday? He says, yeah, the FBI director said that Cheryl Mills did have some classified information on her laptop.
Which is illegal. Guess what that's called? A felony.
Sure. But because she's an attorney, she doesn't have to disclose it, right? He said, was it Trey Gowdy that said...
She's her attorney.
Right.
He said that if they had subpoenaed it, there'd be litigation over it. Big deal. That's what the courts are there for.
Here's Jonathan Turley yesterday. He's a professor of law at George Washington University Law School, and known to be more of a liberal.
I think that the real problem with all of this is that it shakes credibility of the FBI. They said they wanted to build a criminal case. You don't build a criminal case by not only handing out the guy who was on the phone call with Clinton attorneys, who, by the way, invoked the privilege against self-incrimination, but then you give immunity to the person on the other end of that conversation.
It just seems fishy.
He's a brilliant legal scholar, and he's got his finger right on the pulse of this. This is damaging, tarnishing the reputation of the best law enforcement entity on the planet, because they didn't even follow their own basic rules in this case.
Yeah, no kidding. All right, Judge, thank you very much for dropping by.
Thanks, Judge.
Guys, all the best.
Another 1,000 pages are coming, by the way.
That means I have to read it this weekend,
Absolutely.
Brian? So I can explain it on
We'll
Monday.
get you a book on tape.
Means you'll be back on the curvy couch. All right, let's hand it over to Abby, who has some headlines for us.
Hey, Abby. Guys. Judge, always good to see you as well. We do begin with a Fox News alert, a story we are following all morning. Panic breaking out at a zoo after 2 lions escaped. This all unfolding in Germany. 2 male lions somehow slipped out of their cages overnight and are somewhere on the zoo grounds. They say an emergency plan is now in place. The zoo will be closed to the public until the 1-year-old lions are found. And this video is Justin showing protesters throwing bottles at police officers. Cops forced to shut down streets outside of San Diego. Others yelling for them to stop throwing glass bottles. The protesters are outraged over the killing of Alfred Alongo. This photo released by the El Cajon Police Department shows a 38-year-old in a shooting stance. Later it was revealed he was not holding a gun but a vape-smoking device. Officers shot him after his sister called 911 to report him acting erratically. Well, the officers involved, both 21-year veterans of the force, are now on leave. And the images are so upsetting. Children terrified and crying after a teenager opened fires while they are on the playground at school. Officers say the 14-year-old suspect shot and killed his dad, Jeffrey Osborne. You can see him there inside his own home in South Carolina. Then he drove 2 miles to Townville Elementary School, where he shot 2 6-year-old boys and a teacher before being tackled by a firefighter. 1 child is in critical condition this morning. Authorities say the teenager was homeschooled, and this morning he is in custody. School is closed for the rest of the week. And talk about head over heels. All right, so this proposal in Mexico going horribly off script. A woman who was so shocked that she fainted when she woke up, she said yes. Question is, how long did this poor guy have to wait before she said yes?
Isn't that what they do in acting to see if you trust the person? You step behind.
The trust fall.
Yeah.
It's true love, you guys. She fell on her bottom first, so she didn't hit her head. Because that could have been pretty dangerous.
I think the moral of the story is don't get engaged. I mean, that's what I'm getting from that. Yes, that's what I'm getting. You two, you write us. Tell us what you think.
Are you having some regrets or something?
No,
What is that about?
Sometimes it can hurt. Meanwhile, the White House promises the vetting process for refugees is top-notch, so they must screen them for their radical views, right? Wrong.
And Congress says no to President Obama overriding a veto for the first time in his presidency. a bill allowing families of 9/11 victims to sue Saudi Arabia. Jillian Turner agrees with the president, who is very angry about it. She will explain next.
All right, Congress says no to President Obama overriding a veto for the first time in his presidency of a bill allowing families of 9/11 victims to sue Saudi Arabia. Now, the president now reacting to what happened yesterday, and he was not pleased.
Well, I think it was a mistake. Our men and women in uniform around the world could potentially start seeing ourselves subject to reciprocal loss. It's a dangerous precedent, and it's an example of why sometimes you have to do what's hard. And frankly, I wish Congress here had done what's hard.
So why would he want this bill vetoed in the first place? Fox News contributor Jillian Turner served in the White House at the National Security Council under President George W. Bush and President Obama, and now reacts to that. Jillian, you do not like the fact that this override took place. Why?
I don't, and I agree with the president. The reason he's talking about why this was a really hard bill is because as Americans, as patriots, we all want to see the families of 9/11 victims compensated financially. We want them to be able to seek justice.
We just want to find out what
here
happened.
And abroad, and to find out what happened. The problem with this particular piece of legislation is not that. It's the longer-term implications, the reciprocity that's built into it, which is going to allow other countries to sue the United States.
Now, others say, well, you know what, that's not true. This was written very narrowly. They said the measure is narrowly tailored and applies only to acts of terrorism that occur on U.S. soil.
Well, how do you define acts of terrorism? Does that include drone strikes that we conduct around the Middle East covertly? Does that include things that our soldiers do on the battlefield in times of war? Because other countries might define terrorism differently than we do. And that's where the difficulty really comes in on this issue. That's what makes it really complicated.
So you have a bunch of 9/11 families who believe that these terrorists couldn't have acted without some type of organization, and they believe the money trail does go back to some element of the Saudi government. The Saudis vehemently protested, but mysteriously have gone silent since. What do you think the potential damage is for those relationships, should we care?
Well, look, now that this bill is going to be a law, I think that there's going to be real damaging consequences to the U.S.-Saudi bilateral relationship. Public approval amongst Americans right now is not at its highest for the Saudis, the royal family, but regardless, they're still a really important defense ally to us in the region. And on some issues, we share the same interests and actually values, as much as people don't like to hear that.
So what do you think happened? I heard that Senator John McCain was saying, listen, I'm not for this override, and others were starting to step out. What do you think happened on Capitol Hill?
Well, there's one answer, and that's it's an election year.
It was 97-1 on Senate.
It was a huge majority because it's an election year, and nobody wants to take the risk of having an optic that they're not siding with the family members of 9/11 victims. That's kind of the worst thing you can do, and it's very easy for the other side to spin it.
And Jillian, the thing is, the dispute really goes with the legal minds. People like Senator John Cornyn said this is narrow. Judge Napolitano, I made him a governor. He also said the same thing.
Why not?
John Cornyn says this: it gives the victims of the terrorist attack on our own soil an opportunity to seek the justice they deserve. Thanks so much, Jillian.
Sure. Thanks, Brian.
All right, coming up straight ahead. You probably have it in your own medicine cabinet right now. Up next, the popular pill that could have deadly consequences, so close it. And our government can't figure out how to help our veterans, but we did. Leah Gabriel will join us live next to talk about this program, which you just have to hear the details on.